Hello. Welcome to Work Life Leader Live. This is Julie Cohen. I am an executive coach and CEO of Work Life Leader, and you are here for Work Life Leader Live. This is a new live stream that I've had the honor to start last week. I just was able to use this wonderful LinkedIn Live technology to connect with people all over the world. And Work Life Leader Live is an opportunity to talk about leadership, talk about career management, career effectiveness, and the intersection of our work lives and our personal lives. So some call that work-life balance, work-life integration. But this experience, this broadcast and our future broadcasts are all about how we as professionals and leaders interact with the people we work with and how we show up outside of work. I'm honored today. Our topic today is collaborative leadership and shared expectations. And I have a wonderful guest with me today. And I'm going to bring on my colleague and friend, Marvin Chambers. Hey, Marvin.
It's good. How you doing, Julie?
I'm good. So let me do the formal introduction before we get down to the awesome conversation. So Marvin is a seasoned executive coach, HR executive, and talent strategist, as well as an author with 25 years experience working with leaders and talent at all levels in global organizations such as, and the list was so long I had to cut it down, but these are some of the names, Coca-Cola Company, W.R. Grayson Company, and Ernst & Young, which is where Marvin and I met over 20 years ago. It is over 20 years ago because November is my 20th anniversary of my business. So that's when I left, and I knew you before then. So yep. we won't share our ages, right?
No, not today.
Yeah. So besides running his own coaching and consulting biz, he's also an executive coach for Work Life Leader. And he's as you can see on what I put on the bottom of the screen here, he's also an HR advisor. He's one of my go-to people around HR issues, and he's an all-around great guy. So I do want to share off. I always like to ask people I talk with a fun fact. So what's something about you that people don't know? You want to share something?
Yeah, I'm not a runner. When I said I'm really not a runner. So I have a goal of a 5K this year.
Wow.
I'm up to about 3K-ish.
Yeah.
In terms of that preparation, but my wife, who's a big runner, she runs half marathons.
Oh my God.
So she put me on a training program, and I'm so bad, Julie, that the program started with 30 seconds run and 1 minute walk.
Yeah.
Right? And now I'm up to 20 minutes of running and then only a 2 minute walk. So
well, hey, that sounds
progress.
That sounds like pretty impressive progress. So thank you for sharing that. So let's dive in. So we're going to talk about collaboration, collaborative leadership. What does that look like? Why is it important? Expectations and alignment, what that means, how it shows up. And, our hope is we're going to be hearing from people who are watching. I can see there's some folks who are already here. So if you are watching, before we get started, we want your questions and your comments. Please introduce yourself in the comments if you're here. And if you are watching on Friday afternoon, September 4th at noon-ish Eastern, do hashtag live. So we know you're here now, as well as if people listen to this later, they'll know whether it was live or later. I see Bill Hyman has joined us. Bill is a colleague, also HR consultant. And so we are going to be pulling from comments and questions from the stream as we go. So let's get started, Marvin, talking about this concept of collaboration. Well, before we do that, I just want to talk why this topic. And this topic is, honestly, this is the nuts and bolts of leadership. This is the nuts and bolts of professional effectiveness, how to get stuff done and how to help facilitate getting things done by the people who work with you and around you. When we collaborate and have shared expectations, we can get more done and do it better and more effectively. So to me, this is one of the reasons why. But another reason is because of where we are and the timeliness of what's happening in this world. And I think when we see national and global leadership, a lot of this is failing. And so, as well as the impact of the pandemic and how it's affecting collaboration, as well as expectations that likely for a lot of people were never set before a pandemic, kind of hit us. And so there's a lot of dissonance, and I'm seeing that with my clients and in organizations I work with, where there's a lot of uncertainty of expectations. So I think it's both timely and foundational. Anything that you want to add to that of why we're talking about this?
No, Julie, you're spot on. I mean, right now you're facing issues around gender equity, racial equity, justice, technology, right? All these different challenges at one time. And there's so many different perspectives and point of views that are kind of making us drift apart. Shared expectations and processes like this are ways to kind of bring us back together to find the common ground. So this is definitely timely.
Yes, good. So I just want to pause because I see some people joined. Professor Viraneni, I don't know you, but welcome. Thank you for joining us. And then there's some people, I just want to let people who are watching live know this. So I can see streams, I can see when you're talking, but some people's name does not come up. So someone just said, 2 of my favorite people live. I don't know who you are. So tell me who you are. And then there's someone that said, hi, Julie, we met last year. If you would just put in the in another chat box who you are, your name is not coming across. So thank you. And again, we want to hear your what's happening with you around collaboration, what's working, what's not working, what you've noticed. Has collaboration and your efficacy around collaboration changed at all during the pandemic? But we're going to start just kicking this off. Marvin's going to share, actually, we're going to both share a story of good collaboration, what worked, and just briefly, describe what it was and what was working.
For me, want me to go?
Yeah, you go first.
Personal or professional?
Your call. What, we want to do a professional, personal, really whatever resonates with you.
I think from, I guess on a professional level, right? Often you're in organizations that are going through lots of turmoil, and right now, unfortunately, you see lots of restructures, reorganizations, and things like that taking place, right? As organizations try to figure out, how do I get aligned effectively to achieve the results that we really need to achieve in the marketplace? And with that, with all of that friction, as you already mentioned, you're seeing different silos or parallels kind of forming, right? Where people have different agendas and people are just missing each other in terms of getting that alignment. So I found processes like this, I found work very effectively when you're trying to do those types of things, when you're trying to develop new products. During my days at Coke, I was in a group called Emerging Brands, where we're building our own brands from scratch. And so the ability to kind of work with R&D, with marketing and brand teams, with customer teams, and bring them all together and align expectations was a beautiful way to kind of really create innovation and really put some great products to market, and also basically also buy some very impactful products as well. Yeah,
great. So my example is professional, and it's probably one of the best collaborative experiences I've had. Actually, it started about 5 years ago. It continues today, but differently. Is I work with an instructional designer, and she and I hired her when I was developing Work Life Leader. This part of my business I started developing about 5 years ago. We actually developed an idea that I had around changing the way training is done. I think this could be another topic, another work live. I think that corporate training spends often too much money and doesn't get the results that I think warrant that expense. And so I have redesigned what I think is much more powerful training and much more results-oriented training. And I needed an instructional designer to help me with that, because that's not my area of expertise. I was an expert on the content, but I needed someone to help me take my ideas and make them into to actual training. And she and I had this relationship where we just worked with each other in such a powerful way that I felt I was at my best. She was able to pull the best out of me, and I was able to rely on her, and give her both feedback on kind of what I needed the end result to be, but also how we could work more effectively. And so over time, and actually it was a fairly short amount of time, we both adapted our styles to kind of get better and better and deliver the results. And now we've been working together, 4 or 5 years. A lot of that we don't even have to talk about. We know each other's styles. So in the beginning, it was really about setting a foundation of what we both need, how we both work well together, and constantly nurturing that working relationship. So we never, if something didn't go well, be like, we talk about it in a non-defensive way and figure out how to keep moving forward. So that was just a wonderful example of collaboration that today still, is still very important to me.
Great example.
Yeah. So I just want to pause and would love to hear. So the person who I didn't know who said two of my favorite people was Yu Zhang, Marvin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So she's watching. Hello. How are you, Yu? It's great to see you. And I see Dr. Dawn Graham, wow, has joined us. So we'd love to hear from you. To get started, we're going to move on to our first question, but we'd love to hear from you. Collaborative experiences. As a reminder, our topic today is collaborative leadership and shared expectations, and why it's important, how it works, and the results that happen from it. So please share comments about collaborative experiences that worked well for you, or where you maybe have had challenges around collaboration. So put it in the chat box, and if you're watching on Friday, September 4th, around midday Eastern, put #live so we know you're with us. All right, Marvin, let's now break down, now that we shared our stories,
Right.
let's talk about why collaboration is so important. You kind of, we both kind of hinted about it in our conversations or in our examples, but let's talk about some specifics. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, what you're seeing right now, we kind of hinted to it because of all of these changes that we see, is that we're all out of sorts to some extent. We don't really know what we're doing, right? We're in a pandemic where everyone's trying to figure things out. Things are just totally different before. And often we've kind of had our lanes, we've had our expertise, and we can kind of lean on that in order to get through things. And when you're in this place of constant change and you just don't know all the answers, you don't know the playbook, it's much more critical that you're able to rely on others, that you trust others, that you bring in, you widen your tent in order to get to the right place at the right time to solve the problems or get to the place that you really want to get to, right? So you can't be like this. You have to kind of broaden yourself, broaden your perspective. And the best way to broaden your perspective is bringing more people in and collaborate to get to a better result.
Yeah. So you mentioned trust, and I think that's a critical component of collaboration. And so building trust and also psychological safety are two really important issues around making people and teams more effective to collaborate well. So I see we have a couple more people who've joined us. Welcome, everybody. Victoria Bates, hello. Bill Hyman, I see you're here. And I have family here. My sister has joined. Hello, Missy. So we actually want to hear your questions and comments around collaboration, around shared expectations, what's working with you, what's not working. Are you on a team that is really effective? Are you on a team that is not performing the way that you want it to be? Are you have you had new challenges since the pandemic, or are challenges continuing? One thing else you said, Marvin, that I think is really important. You talked about the importance of trust and how during this time collaboration is even more critical. I think one of the bigger challenges, I'm seeing people who are starting new roles. We're now 6 months into this. People are starting new roles, moving teams, new projects without having had interpersonal, face-to-face as human connections than they're used to having. So new, that creates a whole new level of challenge. Were you going to say something to that?
No, that's exactly it. And so in those times, you have to really lean in often in a much more formal way than you're accustomed to, right? So where you would organically walk by someone's office and you would build those relationships, now you have to be much more intentional
Yeah,
about building those relationships and forging those relationships.
yeah, yeah. The other pieces around, we're kind of talking about the importance of collaboration. Um, besides, getting stuff done, getting your tasks done, doing it well. Um, there's the other side of people like to work with people they like, right? I mean,
Right? No, like, and trust. Yep.
yeah, and so and I think sometimes people forget this, that and this has evolved over the. I mean, I've seen this over the last 20 years, just kind of staying on top of trends in work and career. Um, People are expecting and wanting more meaning from their work, and having collaborative relationships. Again, whether it's team based or organizational based, or just hey, there's someone I can rely on when I have an issue, challenge, or problem that I work with that understands my organizational culture. That makes people want to stay at that organization. So this is critically aligned, for the HR executives who are out there watching us now. I assume you'll confirm, and Bill, and Marvin, I see Bill's there too. So I know there's a couple other HR folks here. You'll I assume affirm what I'm about to say, is that collaboration and shared expectations, being able to work effectively together, is critical to retention. If you want to retain your top talent, you want to create an environment that nurtures that type of relationship. Yay, nay.
I mean,
I always
I
welcome
mean,
contrarian also.
yeah, no, oh yeah, I mean, that whole notion of mutual purpose and mutual respect, right? That's what really people want. They want to be in an environment where they can have this shared sense of meaning, and they want to do it in a place where they have that psychological safety and they feel valued and appreciated and respected.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a comment, and I think this might be Yuzhong. Again, I can't see because your name isn't coming up, but someone just said, I really enjoyed, actually, let's see, I think I can add this comment. It's a nice big one. Yeah, so I really enjoyed reading 2 articles around leadership from Marvin Chambers, inspired by Black Panther. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about how to apply the us-them culture in the collaborations. How do you inspire your team towards a collaborative goal? So I'm going to take that down. It's big. So do you want to? That's about your. And I'll share that after the live stream in the comments. So Marvin wrote a great article around. Well, he's written 2 articles recently. One about leadership and the Black Panther, obviously with the passing of Chadwick. And I'm going to what the last name? Boseman. I just think of him as Chadwick. Chadwick Boseman. Marvin wrote a great piece on that, and there's another piece he wrote recently for the Forbes Council where he is a contributor around this exact topic of shared expectations and alignment. So do you want to respond to that question?
It was.
I'd like to hear more. I'd like to hear more about how to apply the us-them culture in the collaborations. How do you inspire your team towards collaborative goals?
That's a great question. What Yu Young is referring to the us them. Often especially when there's a lot of stress, when the tensions are high and there are different points of view of how to tackle something, people entrench, right? And we kind of go at things with this sense of judgment. Good, my way is good, your way is bad, that's right, that's wrong. So you kind of create this us them binary dynamic. As leaders, what we have the opportunity to do is exactly that. Search for the opportunity, the larger opportunity in meeting. So move it from this is my perspective, this is your perspective, to getting to ultimately what are we trying to accomplish, looking for the commonality in terms of what we all agree that we're moving toward, and then looking for and searching for the joint opportunity to move things forward. So you can get out of this binary dynamic and get up to how do we both take accountability for what we can take accountability for to make it happen? How do we go to this kind of shared understanding of like, who are we trying to serve? And then what do we need to do together, which gets into shared expectations? What do you need from me? And then what do I need from you in order for us to get to that shared pool of meeting and to that shared purpose?
Right. Great. So I will then kind of build on that, which I think is really critical. So Marvin just asked a bunch of really important questions. How do we? And because those how questions are what's going to lead towards a more effective, collaboration and everyone being on the same page and potentially lessening that us them binary. The challenge happens, and this is, I think one of the how steps on this is in coaching, we say name it. So you have to identify it, and as a leader of a team, or even if you are a member of that team, to notice it. I notice when we talk about, this could be you, again, whether you're a leader or even a team member, or even one-on-one with someone, I notice, there's multiple ideas here, and they're good ideas, and everyone is kind of holding tight. This is getting in the way of our effectiveness. Let's talk about how we can move forward. So when you notice a behavior, in your team that is slowing down that collaboration, slowing down those relationships that Marvin is talking about, and not enabling you to answer those questions, you have to take a step back and just look at it, identify it, and then bring people in and create that safe place where they can then have conversations about, all right, yes, this is preventing us from being effective. We all are on the same team and we need to be. How do we do it? And that can be both a scary thing to say, even if you're the boss, even if you're the project manager, and it can also be a really inspiring thing. It's both, actually. It's not an either or. It's both. And to say that can really lead to a very positive cascade of behavior change. So, thoughts on that? What works? What doesn't work with that?
That's a great perspective, a great strategy to use, and it shows a leader's ability to adapt. What you can also do from a shared expectations perspective is anticipate. So before you get to those situations, think about teams you've been a part of that worked very well. So what do we want to build into kind of our psychological contract to help us deal with those difficult times when they're going to come? Just like you did with the person that was your instructional design architect, right? What do we need to do? What do you need from me? What do I need from you? What are we going to do if we have a conflict or a disagreement? How do we want to handle it? How are we going to hold each other accountable? What exactly do you need from me in terms of knowledge and tools?
Right.
Proactively having those discussions and getting that shared understanding on the front end can really also help you get where you want to be.
So I just want to pause to to invite anyone who's watching now to ask questions. Any questions to me and Marvin about this concept of collaborative leadership, shared expectations, how to pull a group together, a team together to work more effectively. Would also love to hear if you've had challenges in the past, what you could describe them, what they were, put that in the chat box, or if you have had worked really well on a successful team or project, what you did to make that happen, what you put into place. So please put in the comments if you're watching on Friday, September 4th at midday Eastern. Put #live, but we will revisit these comments later too. So if you're watching this recorded, we will answer any comments you have later too. So please engage with us. You mentioned that what you just built on, kind of the proactive way to address this. I think this leads to that issue of alignment and shared expectations, and a term I often like to use called clear agreements. And that work needs to happen early, before ideally, in the ideal world, it happens before you start the project. Ideally, it starts with onboarding. When you're a new employee of an organization, there's ways to learn about the culture and the operating rules. So those conversations can happen and should happen at the beginnings.
Yes, very.
And yet sometimes they don't happen. And so we don't, the proactive way is, ideal. That's why, and Marvin comes from the consulting world. He, his roots with me in kind of the consulting world, and has done a lot of work around change management. When you start a new project, in the ideal world, you have a project charter where you talk about all of these things, but sometimes they just don't happen. So it's how do you talk about expectations. So do you want to maybe build on that? Like what's successful around how do we, what are some successful strategies around starting at the beginning? Like what are some of those things if you are starting a new project or, bringing together a new team to work on something together, or you're bringing someone new into a team, how do you onboard them? So whatever one you like to answer. I didn't.
I'll try to combine both. I'll give a real life example.
Okay.
I'm starting a new project next week where I'm going to be the interim HR leader for a new organization. So I'm going to be having conversations with each member of the leadership team. So I'm going to start off with those expectations. I'm going to get their perspective on, what is their leadership style? How do they like to communicate? Do they like email? Do they like verbal? Do they want to have Zoom meetings? How do they want to work together? What times of day do they find that they're most agreeable to have meetings? What are some of their pet peeves, right? In terms of understanding some of those kind of things. So understanding how they want to communicate, when they communicate best, what's the right methods for them? What are some of the things that drive them absolute crazy? What are their perspectives on what should my priorities be? Those kind of questions so we can get aligned. And then I'll do the same thing in terms of share my perspective in terms of my preferred styles, preferred ways of operating, preferred ways of communicating, and then talk about how do we want to move forward this way. And one of the most critical questions I asked Julie is, from time to time, we're not going to be on the same page. We're going to have different perspectives. How do we want to address that? So we can get that alignment up front, right? And kind of build those agreements so that we have an anchor. So because things are often, we're human beings, right? We're messy sometimes. So we have that anchor because we've had those expectations setting conversations. Say, hey, let's step back a little bit. Like, remember that conversation. What's working for you? What's not working for you? And we leverage that anchor to kind of move us forward.
So for those of you who are listening, what Marvin just said is like the secret sauce, is the to me, really powerful advice when you're starting a professional relationship. Now, the tricky thing is if you're bringing someone new and your peers, your collaborators, that kind of conversation is easy to have. Like in your role coming in as a consultant, it's, you demand, like your presence demands that because you need to do that to be really effective. The tricky part is, so to me, and this, I'm going to go out on a limb on this, I think a great leader, a great boss, a great manager, whatever you want to call yourself, they should be having that conversation actually with their direct reports and their team members, and take that from a top down, make the culture where you can talk to you're a director, you go to your managers and say, I want to know this about you so I can adapt who I am for you. Give it back to them. Let them know, yeah, like that question is so powerful. What are we going to do if we disagree? If a boss, a manager, a leader says that to their direct reports, their team members, or a CEO in an organization where they're saying that to the whole culture.
Game changing. That's
exactly. Game changing. Because then people aren't afraid. They know, wow, I can do this. So to me, that is powerful. And I would love, I would love for, new employees when they have their new boss, if their boss doesn't do this, to say, hey, I would really appreciate, there's a couple of things I'd like to know about you so I can be the best employee possible.
Absolutely.
Now, unfortunately, I think a lot of new employees, especially, if you're on the younger side and, might be your first or second or only third job, you might feel intimidated by doing that. But you will look awesome. So you're getting a lot of free advice from us. You will look awesome if you do that. So
you'll look awesome. And Julie, what I'll add to that is it's never too late.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes people think, oh, I've been on the job now in 2 years. If I could possibly go to it's always an opportunity. There's always a new project. There's always a new thing that you need to do. You may be having your performance review soon. There's always an opportunity to say, hey, let's reset. Let's look at where we are. What's working for us? What's not working for us? To kind of have that reset.
Yeah. Okay, so we just got a question from Bill Hyman. Thank you, Bill. In here, I love this new. So for those of you, this is only my third live stream, and I'm loving it. This might be my new career, just doing live streams every day. But I'm learning the technology. So we just heard from Bill Hyman. In light of COVID and so much uncertainty, do you feel that there are unique strategies to build collaboration and trust? And to me, it is yes. I definitely feel that. Marvin, thoughts? Do you want to go with this one? You want me to start? You decide.
I do. I can start. It definitely applies, Bill, on a individual level, but also at team and organizationally. Is this notion of how do you make people feel safe? So right now, uncertainty. The first thing you go to is this kind of sense of fight, flight, or freeze. Right, the sense of fear takes over.
So say those three words again. I know you've used it, so people hear you say them slower because those are important. Fight.
Fight, flight, and freeze.
Right. Okay. Good.
That is the normal reaction when the stress is high, when the emotions are high, when you're uncertain, not sure what to do. So the best thing you can do as a leader is help your employees feel safe. And typically, from a neuroscience perspective, human beings were very relational. There's really 5 areas, right, where you want to help people move to that safety. One is called status. So anytime anyone feels out of sort from a perspective of where I am in the hierarchy, I'm not sure if that's going to stay because I want to keep that sense of normalcy. The more you can help them feel safe about where they are, their place, how they operate, the better. Also, the C is certainty, right? The more you can give them a sense of understanding of what's going to happen, as much as you can. The more information people have, the better they feel, the more psychologically safe they feel. The next is autonomy. People, especially when things are going crazy around them, want to have as much sense of control as possible. So as much as you can within their sphere of influence, point out where they have control, where they have the space to do what they need to do. Very important to kind of create that sense of safety. Also, then the notion of what I call relatedness. Like when you're afraid and your fear sets in, you kind of have this sense of, friend or foe. Is this person trying to get me, right? Kind of kicks in. Sometimes not rational, but people feel it. So the more you can actually go to them proactive and say, hey, I'm on your side. I'm going to help you, right? I'm going to do what I can to help you get through this, to be successful. So they see you as that advocate, that ally. And then lastly, a sense of fairness. Often when you're not certain, you see like you're looking for what's not right. So the more you can kind of make people see what's fair about the processes, fair about the practices, or bring a sense of fairness if something isn't fair, the better you can kind of create this sense of psychological safety. So I call it the SCARF, right?
Yes.
Status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness.
It's funny. So this must be you, Jean, because I know you're connected with her as well as I am. She just wrote, Marvin, great hearing you share the SCARF model to deal with the fight, flight, and freeze reaction. So there you go. So she knows that model. So you just gave an amazing, for those of you who are watching this as a recording, you should now rewind for a minute. Well, no, it was like 2 or 3 minutes and hear what Marvin just said again, because it was so good. There's so much there about that issue of psychological safety and understanding we are in, everyone says this, we're in unprecedented times, and it is. And so the world of work has changed for everybody. The entire globe, it has changed in the last 6 months. So the emotions and, again, what you said, fight, flight, freeze, they're impacting us in all different ways at all the time. So being able to identify and then have concrete behaviors that can help elevate people so they feel more, more connected is really critical. From a tactical sense, I think there's some other things that, building still on Bill's question about some other strategies. I think one of the things that people are missing, and there's many things, and I have been having lots of different conversations about this, is the casual connections, the more human, personal connections that happens when you work in an office and work with people. Like literally when you're connecting live, when you are coexisting in the same space, that humanness of walking in the hallway together, bumping into someone, what is called water cooler. I don't know if they still have water coolers in offices. I haven't worked in an office in quite some time. I go into offices with clients and I see all different things. But whether it's the break room or lunchtime, that downtime has pretty much been eliminated completely. Whether you're still going into an office, you're surely probably not talking to someone in close quarters. So all that's gone, and that is where a lot of that trust is built. And so I know I'm looking at it in my work and with my clients of how can we create that obviously differently, but still create that time of connection. And so there are ways to use technology um, to allow for this. I mean, I use Zoom to connect with people, and yet when we're feeling pressured by kind of time and demands of kind of this new interconnectedness of our work and life, it's the idea of taking extra time to connect with people at work feels like almost kind of anathema. Like it's not what I can do because I'm just trying to keep afloat, work, and manage everything else that's in crisis. So I think there's this piece of a good leader will create time on the agenda for connection. And again, it may be counterintuitive. Wow, time is finite and we need to do more with less. Why should I take time out to put people in breakout rooms and talk about, what they did over the weekend? And I think that is critical. So, and I have a lot of thoughts around this, and that this is something that is missing, and it's not only affecting efficacy and productivity, it's affecting mental health too. So, for what that's worth, is how can you design water cooler time into your Zoom team meetings, into your phone conversations? How are you as a manager picking up the phone to talk with your direct reports, not about anything agenda based, or letting them drive an agenda, and starting with a genuine "How are you?" Not "Hey, how are you?" It's "How are you?" So, for what
Yes.
it's worth. Okay, so I hope we answered your question, Bill. Um, and let's keep going. I want to just pause since we talked a lot about that great request from Bill. We love your questions and comments. We're talking about collaborative leadership, shared expectations, how to create high performing teams, always and in the middle of a pandemic. So I think a lot of what we talk about that happens during a pandemic actually is still good, is even better when you're not in a pandemic. It will even further facilitate productivity, efficacy, and satisfaction. But I think it's all connected. So we have a couple new comments. So let's see. Bill Hyman, thank you. He just said, "Thank you, Julie and Marvin. This Work Life Leader Live should be required viewing for all leaders." Well, I'll welcome you to do that. So, and then we have a question. We had a comment. I assume this is from Yu Zhang. She gave an article around creating a purpose-driven organization. And she made a comment: a leader's most important job is to connect the people to their purpose. And she went on to say it seems particularly challenging during pandemic as people feel more isolated and easily get lost in the day-to-day work. And she said, as a project manager, I find it very important to pause from time to time. And for some reason, Yuzhan, the rest of that comment does not come out. I see there's more words, but on my screen, that's all I see. So if there's more you want to add, please add it in a different comment so we can see it. But I think what she mentioned about this issue and the article she shared, which I think I have read, but I can't be 100% sure. But it's that critical that purpose is critical to for people to be engaged in that collaborative piece, and people want meaning in their work, and it is a manager's job to give purpose, tying it to the organizational mission, but also knowing your people well enough that you can tie the purpose of the work to that person's purpose, right, Marvin?
I think so. And I would add to that, kind of the mantra on my T-shirt today is the whole notion of within that shared sense of purpose, also letting people to exercise it through their voice. So important. People want to be heard. So part of the purpose people have in terms of their day-to-day jobs, but given everything that's going around with the pandemic and race relations and justice and all those things, people want to bring some of those things that maybe sometimes have been taboo in the workplace. They need to express some of that voice. And the more that organizations can be supportive of that, I think that's really the next level, where you're not just an employee that does this job, but we see all of you.
Yeah.
As you can help, the more you can help people embrace all of them in the workplace, the more you're going to drive greater productivity as well as engagement.
Yeah. So to Yu Zhang followed up, and she said, as a project manager, which I know that's her role, I find it very important to pause from time to time and help people reconnect with something beyond daily tasks. Think about what truly matters to ourselves, to the people we care about, the customers we serve, and the mission of the organization. It helps realignment and adjusts expectations. So I think that's spot on aligned with what you were saying. Um, so we got another question. So thank you, Victoria Bates. Appreciate your question. It's, how do you foster that connection when teams are constantly meeting in teams with a capital T? So it's the technology teams when they're meeting via Teams, and they may be weary of each other. Yes. So, the whole Zoom fatigue, Teams fatigue, I think, this is unique to what's happening, just by this, overnight switch to engagement in a whole new way. A couple things, Victoria, I'm going to comment on this, Marvin, and then I'll throw it over to you. A couple things. So what's interesting is we eat, and actually I talked about this in another one of our broadcasts. I think it might have been with Bill Hyman. I know you're here. So I think we talked about this. Everyone has very different relationships to this new technology, like the meeting in Teams. Victoria, you're talking about the weariness. So it's really important, as if you're a team leader or just it's a project and you're all together and you have to work consistently, to understand people's personality around the meeting style. So if you're meeting on Zoom or Teams all the time, I get energized on Zoom. So by my personality, like, I can do Zooms back to back. It's if I start to get drained if I don't talk to enough people. So this energizes me. But for other people who may be more on the introversion scale, or just it's not their thing, and it can be exhausting. So it's important for you to know where people thrive best. Again, that would be critical whether you're in pandemic and working on technology or in your day-to-day job. You should know the preferences of the people who are on your team and that you work with. So to me, Victoria, to answer your question, there's an opportunity to check in with folks and actually ask them that question. I notice you seem really drained in the meetings. What would be better for you? I want us to connect. Help me understand what you need. What's important to you? The issue, the other people, that person might come back to you and say, yeah, I would just have some one-on-one time with you. I've had clients who might say, I don't want to do Zoom. That puts a whole level of pressure on me. So we just do phone. I just will talk to them on the phone, and that's their sweet spot. So asking, it may be, they want to have a lunch break, and let's all just meet for lunch, put some technology on where there's no agenda. Again, I would encourage you to ask your team to come up with 5 creative ideas. To me, it can actually be a team building process. Ask them to come up. What would work? I'm noticing this, and I know for some people, Teams is overwhelming. What could we do differently, not on Teams, that would allow for this? So to me, that's taking a coach approach to your question, Victoria. It doesn't have a specific, I'm not giving you an exact tip, but taking that approach, I think, could really help facilitate not only solving the issue, but actually engage people more in creatively problem solving. So thoughts, Marvin, on that?
I think part of it is variety is extremely important. So understanding, to your point, environment. So I know an example. One thing that my wife does very well, because I'm on the top floor, she's on the next floor as her office, is she'll switch it up. Right now, I can see her out the window with her headphones in, walking around, because she'll say, what everyone can do right now, and if you want to get out and walk around while we have our call, we got technology, let's do that, right? Or sometimes she'll switch it up and they'll have phone calls and they'll walk around. So let's get out the house, and they'll actually talk and say, where are you doing? What are you seeing as you're walking around? And they actually have conversations that way to kind of change your scenery. Sometimes can really help. Another thing that's seen done really well is really managing your time. Sometimes you need, if, for example, that you're introverted and you need time to energize, sometimes you just have to block your calendar at a certain time so that you can get that time to kind of recharge, refocus, rejuvenate yourself. So do what you need to do. You understand yourself, you understand what you need, and that's part of what shared expectations is. Communicate that to your colleagues, communicate it to your boss, so that you can kind of set and level set, when you may need to get some of that downtime.
Yeah, that's great. So we're probably we're going to wrap up soon. I always like to wrap up at the top of the hour, by the top of the hour. So I just want to put out to anyone who's watching. I see we still have some viewers and people here are ready and engaging, which is awesome. Any last questions, comments, issues, challenges, successes you have around building a team with shared expectations, creating an environment for collaborative leadership? We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, tips, questions, and then we'll see where we're going. You're welcome, Victoria. I'm glad that was helpful. Okay, so let's just talk about kind of if you had to pick one piece of advice, like to integrate some of the stuff we've talked about. We've covered a lot of ground in this conversation. If you have to pick one thing, kind of like your words of wisdom around creating that team with shared expectations and an environment for really effective collaboration, what would it be? And I know there's a million, but I'm putting you on the spot. I want just the one thing you would say.
Honesty.
Oh, okay.
Be very clear on what you want. That's one of the things is right now, I think everyone is trying to take themselves their clothes in, but they're also trying to take care of others. And in that, I'm seeing this deficit where people are really getting burned out and drained. And they're not stepping back and really saying and really thinking about, what do I really want in order to be the whole person that I need to be in order to show up for not just myself, but so that I can show up the way I need to show up for others. And sometimes in order to do that, you have to put the oxygen mask on first.
Right.
Then let people know what you need so that you can help them.
Yeah. So self-care, it's like, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to take care of yourself. Your most immediate needs of health, well-being, safety, they need to be taken care of before you can go up and start working on higher levels of effectiveness and to eventually get to self-actualization. So it's a path, but you need to be well in order to operate this way. I would go back to that issue of clear agreements, and I guess honestly, honesty builds on that. You have to be able to have those kind of conversations with the people that you want to collaborate with, that you need to collaborate with, and if they're not there, you'd be willing to have that difficult conversation about what you need and what you think the team needs, and be open to listening to what that person needs. And so that it's hard and it's critical. So I would put those there. So I think we are good. We are at the end. This was a fantastic conversation, Marvin. Just to reintroduce you and to thank you. Marvin Chambers is an executive coach. He is an HR consultant, an advisor, an ally, and he's been a colleague and friend of mine for many years, which has been an honor. And I'm going to include in the comments links to some of his articles that he's written recently. Make sure you follow him. He has a great Instagram presence. What's your Insta?
It's Marvin Chambers Coaching.
Okay, yeah, follow him. He's a wise man, and I always learn and I'm inspired when I talk with him. So thank you, Marvin. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about kind of what's coming up and what's next. Let's see, we got a comment. You're welcome. We got a great thank you here. I'll put it up because it's really nice. Thank you for doing this. Stay honest with yourself. Stay open with communication. Stay healthy in general. That's one of her takeaways. And Yuzhang knows the importance of takeaways. That's something we do in Work Life Leader. After every time, again, it's off script here. Not that we have a script, actually. We don't have a script. When you learn something new, we always want to quantify our takeaways. So this is just a leadership tip, a learning tip. I challenge anyone who's watching, take your takeaways anything you get and write it down. document it, and then look at how am I going to apply it. That's how we take learning and we start using it right away. So Yuzhang, thank you for putting that up there. Really appreciate that. And you actually kind of put everything in a nutshell of what we believe is important here. So let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up next. Marvin, if you want to hang with me while I just share.
Yeah, I'll hang with you.
Awesome. So coming up next, again, I'm going to put Marvin's articles in the comments right when we hang up. So Work Life Leader Live, I'm hoping to do this at least twice a week because I'm having fun and the people who show up seem to be having fun. But we want to hear your topics. What leadership, career effectiveness, and work-life balance, work-life integration topics do you want to hear experts have conversations around? Are there experts that you want to see me talk to? Tell me who they are. If you're one of them, get in touch with me and maybe we'll have a conversation here and share and talk about something. We're also having a Work Life Leader Live book group I want to start where we'll be talking about a book that's related to leadership, career effectiveness, work-life balance, work-life integration. If there's books you want us to delve into, you want me and some other folks to delve into, I'd love to hear that. And then I'm also going to do something called Work Life Leader Live Coaching, where I will coach someone real time, a real issue for people to observe. And I will step out of that coaching at times and bring kind of what is happening so you can take what is happening in the coaching and apply it to yourself. So if you're interested in being in the coaching seat in this format, I'd love to talk to you too. So please reach out. Our next Work Life Leader Live is next Tuesday, September 8th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be, the topic is going to be called David Bowie, Icon of Leadership and Career Management. I'm going to be talking about David Bowie, his career, and why what he did is phenomenal and what we all can learn about David Bowie's leadership and career management and apply to our own career paths and our own efficacy as leaders and professionals. So with that, I hope you'll join me. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, everyone who's been here. It's great talking to you. And tune in again. It's awesome to connect with folks. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.